It's time now for another panel discussion live from the New York studio entitled The Role of Branding in Manifesting a More Peaceful and Sustainable World. The panel will be moderated by Charles Travail, Executive Chairman of Interbrand Group, one of our supporters. It will show us how a number of the biggest corporations worldwide are dealing with global instability and how some are collaborating in an effort to create a more peaceful and sustainable world. Over to you, Charles, live in New York.
I wanted to thank Jeremy Gilley and Peace One Day for inviting us to this incredible event that he has put on yet again. We're here to talk about the role of branding in creating a more sustainable and peaceful world. I guess I'd start by saying that the logo that sits behind me at the moment, the Peace One Day logo, is something that we at Interbrand are very proud of having created, but also to talk about the power of symbols in the world. Think of the war in Ukraine. We were one of the first organizations to change our logo to bring the colors of Ukraine together, and we did it as a symbol of support for the people of Ukraine, and we hoped our clients would follow. Symbols are incredibly important in the world. In fact, this week we've seen the power of symbols in around monarchy and the death of our Queen. We've seen the power of words throughout the world as well. And today, really, we've got a wonderful panel to talk about the power of symbols and words, but more than that, the power of concepts and brands as acts of leadership that organizations are taking to try and support issues and problems that we see in the world and bring their people and their assets and their power to bear to try to create a better world. So with that, I'd like to introduce the panel of people that we have here today. First of all, I'd like to introduce Natalie Deacon. Natalie is Head of Sustainability for Avon, the beauty company. She's an expert in women's empowerment and women's issues, which has been a very big push from Avon for many, many years. So Natalie is going to talk about that and many other issues. So welcome, Natalie. Michael Mates is the CEO of Trivium Packaging. It's a $3 billion packaging company. Obviously, the importance of packaging in our daily lives, whether we be in the supermarket or the pharmacy, is incredibly important. And his company is one of the real out-and-out leaders in sustainability in packaging. So our subject will take us there as well. And finally, Christian Duringer, who is a brand and marketeer at Allianz. Allianz is the world's biggest insurance and asset management company, who are here to try to make the world a better and safer place. So with that, I would just like to, having introduced the individuals with us today, I'd like to go to Natalie first. Natalie, if you could just tell us a little bit more about Avon and some of the work you're doing, and specifically some of the things that you're doing to try to create a better and safer world.
Sure, thank you. Really good to be here today. Sorry, I'm not sitting there with all of you in person, and echo everything you've said about what a terrific event this is again this year, and never a more poignant moment really to all come together to mobilise around Peace Day. Wonderful to be here. We at Avon were founded 136 years ago on the premise of creating opportunities for women to participate in the economy, to set up their own small businesses, selling beauty through their social networks. And 136 years later, we are staying true to that model now, albeit women are selling makeup and cosmetics through entirely different social networks to the ones that they were using back in 1886. And really that core premise around unlocking economic participation, unlocking opportunities for women is at the core of what we do. We believe a better world for women is a better world for all. One of the reasons we became involved with Peace One Day is because we, for 15 years now, have focused on mobilizing against gender-based violence, and in particular violence against women and girls, which impacts 1 in 3 women during their lifetimes. And one of the most important things we can all do is just simply start by speaking out and raising awareness. So really pleased to have the opportunity to continue our collaboration with Peace One Day, to take a moment like this to really flag that, as much as the atrocities we see in war zones, we also know that violence takes place in our homes and our schools and communities, often behind closed doors, every day. So we continue to speak out around that, whilst also making sure that we are running our business in as planet kind a way as possible. And really interested to hear some of the discussions around how we can, as communications people, as branding leaders and marketeers, really help people to make more sustainable choices, whether that's from a planet kind or a humankind perspective.
Natalie, thank you for that. Michael, I'd like to go to you and just tell us a little bit more about the packaging business that you run and some of the activities you're involved in to make this a better world.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. So I'm the CEO of Trivium Packaging. We're a global leader in metal packaging. We've got 7,500 employees, over 50 factories around the world. Our products touch hundreds of millions of consumers every single day. Think about the products when you go down the aisles, food cans, whether it be tuna fish cans, even pet food cans, everything from that to infant formula cans and even paint cans to paint your home. So our products are in the homes every day, touching humanity. And what's so important for us, sustainability is really at the heart and soul of everything that we do. Our products are made out of metal, so they're infinitely recyclable. And for us, it's critically important that we make sure that we're also walking the talk. So we've signed up for the Global Compact Initiative. We signed up for the Science-Based Targets Initiatives. We're living and breathing sustainability day in and day out. We've already achieved EcoVadis Platinum status in our first few years as Trivium. And so, even though I should say we formed our company back in 2019 through the merger of 2 companies to create this global leader, and obviously we're making a big impact so far. So it's great to be part of Peace One Day and to continue that message on the sustainability journey.
Great. Christian, let me go to you. Tell us a little bit about Allianz, the scale of the business, and what you're doing to try to make this a better world for all of us.
Absolutely, with pleasure. So I have the privilege to run brand and marketing at Allianz. As Charles said, we're the largest combined insurer and asset manager on this planet. It's rare to find companies or brands who are older than us. So Natalie, you are 4 years older than we are. So we were founded 1890 in Berlin. We are operating in 70 countries around the world. We're having around about 150,000 staff, around about 500,000 of people, agents, brokers representing the Allianz brand globally. And we're looking at a combined asset under management volume of 2.5 trillion US dollars, which is quite substantial. And a few years back, we started to think about the purpose of what we're doing. And it's kind of funny if you're like 125 years old and you start to think why we are in business. But we found 4 amazing words which are really helping us to really have the answers, which are so necessary these days. And those 4 words are: we secure your future. And this is really about securing the future of our customers. And it sounds kind of trivial. Sometimes also people think insurance is boring, but actually without insurance, there would be no progress. So it is actually needed to take people, companies, generations into the future. And our claim, our sort of approach is to really secure the future of our people. So that's why we, of course, are engaged in the sustainability question, and we're trying to work as hard as we can to really turn this 2.5 trillion assets under management, which are actually investments in companies and portfolios, as much carbon neutral as we can in the next couple of years and decades.
So let's start this discussion around what companies are doing. There's a great deal of cynicism out there about whether to believe companies and some of the claims they make and greenwashing and those sort of things. I don't want to get directly into that, but what I do want to start with is that there's a change going on in companies. If we go back to Milton Friedman, he basically said companies are there for the benefit of the shareholder and the shareholder alone. We've seen a significant shift in organizations around the world, here in the United States, the Business Roundtable coming forward and saying, no, we are for all stakeholders, and we only have the license to operate if we look after the people and the planet together. So where are each of you on that journey, and how are you trying to project some of the things you're doing without greenwashing and the claims of greenwashing? So Natalie, let me come back to you with that rather broad comment, but if you can comment on that from an Avon point of view.
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting to hear you quote Friedman, and what he had said back in the 70s was that the social responsibility of business was to deliver profit. Yeah, and we have now seen this seismic shift where actually the social responsibility of a business today is to find profitable solutions to the problems that are facing people and planet. So it's from profit to what we call the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. And it is no longer acceptable for an organization, for a private company to just be delivering on one of those things. So we find not only do we want to be part of the solutions, but also it's what our people expect from us, what our communities expect. And we've all seen the rise of organizations who are delivering for both people and planet are those companies that are managing to survive and in the future thrive through all of the difficult things that the world's throwing at us right now. So our core purpose is around women. So it's around creating a better world for women, which is a better world for all, supporting the issues that matter to them, whether it's raising awareness of breast cancer or violence against women and girls, unlocking earnings opportunities. But we can't just do that bit. So the other important part is how we do business, which is around how can we run our own organization, run our manufacturing operations, how can we create beauty products in a way that is planet kind as well as ticking the humankind box. So that's where we are looking at the carbon footprint of what we create. We're looking at the recyclability of our products. We're looking at how we source our ingredients. So we all need to look at people, planet, and profit. For us, we have 2030 goals that we're working towards. We have shorter term goals to get us there, but it's really important that we have that long-term vision and that we're showing progress against that in a really transparent way. Because going back to the greenwashing issue, I think we find that our communities will forgive us for not being perfect, but they expect us to be honest. And I think that's at the crux of being transparent with the people that you're communicating with.
Fantastic. I love that. Not perfect, but honest. Michael, your comments on this issue.
Yeah, so being in charge of a packaging company that represents the packaging for thousands of brands, I'll first touch upon it from a brand standpoint. We see that, the brands out there that are winning are the ones that are really touching the hearts and minds of consumers, the ones that really stand for something, stand for a greater purpose. Those brands that are really focused on sustainability or focusing on some core value that really touches the heart and mind of a consumer, and the ones that the consumer wants to associate with, the ones that they want to carry that brand around proudly, because that brand actually also displays what that person's mentality is. So they want to be associated with brands that also embody their feelings. So those brands that we see are growing at a disproportionate rate, much quicker than at the other brands that don't embody that that type of mentality. Now, if I look over at Trivium Packaging, shifting gears, I mean, for us, sustainability is at the heart and soul of everything that we do. It's part of our strategy. I mean, we're shaping the future of packaging, to make a better planet for everyone, not only today, for future generations to come. That's our shared purpose. We rally the organization around that. And we do so that every employee gets up every day and they think about what they're doing to positively impact the world. I mean, we're not here just to make packaging products. We're here to make products that really will make the world a better place. Our products recycle forever. We're here to not only impact today's society, but the future. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything along those lines. So we've signed up for the Science-Based Target Initiatives, the UN Global Compact Initiative, like I previously said, and we walk the talk. So we're walking the talk. We're making sure employees are engaged, and sustainability is really at the heart of peace in my mind, right? And if you think about that, look at clean energy. We look at air, right? Everyone needs fresh air. Everyone needs fresh water, clean drinking water, and everyone needs a secure food supply source. And if you don't have those basic things, then you can't have peace. Peace can't prosper. So sustainability is everywhere.
You mentioned some brands that are doing it well and others who are doing it less well. I'm sure they're all your customers. and care to name any who you think are doing it really well?
Well, I mean, I think you can see the ones that are out there, and quite vocal. The Unilevers of the world. You see their brands growing quite well in certain categories. You see, some other brands. I don't want to name lots of the brands, but I'll just tell you there are big companies and small companies out there that are just doing an incredible job and growing at a disproportionate rate because of it.
Christian, give us your thoughts on the shift from shareholder value to stakeholder value. I know Allianz are right at the center of that, but how would you put it in your own words?
Yeah, let me answer maybe in a twofold way. First of all, I'd like to stress that we have the privilege to really look at a business model, which is actually very traditional, but also very contemporary, and it's based on solidarity. So by definition, we're looking at the principle of reciprocity. So we want our customers rather to be members as opposed to just customers, which is actually a quite nice starting point. And secondly, look, I think the stakeholder view comes in if we look at how brands need to behave in the year 2022. We're in the business since 132 years. And we've been looking not only at one crisis, but many, many, many. And I think the one attribute which really sticks out is resilience. And resilience for a lot of stakeholder groups, customers, but also governments, a reliable partner, but also partners, for example, talking about peace, the Olympic movement we're partnering with since a few years. So we're the sole insurance partners. And that obviously gives us the justification, but also the belief that we're doing something right. By now, I was mentioning that we're the largest insurer, but we're also the #1 insurance brand. So people obviously respect and give us the credit for what we do. But it is much more than the customer, and it's much more complex than it looks. And it is maybe the last comment on that one, the notion that brands need to take a different stance. So we're not just there for consumers. We're playing with governments in the public. We're competing basically, or we're playing in the same ecosystem like governments and the public sector.
So I'm sure one of the things that we're all concerned about, and we're here for Peace Day, at another level, we're all concerned about the decline in trust in society. Christian and I were with some people at the UN yesterday or recently, and trust has declined to such a degree that only 30% of humanity, or certainly from their surveys, are trusting any institutions. So we're seeing a real breakdown in civic society around the world. That is obviously of concern to all of us. And I raise it because trust building is really the fundamental relationship between our organizations and either our customers or our suppliers. So are there things, Natalie, that you could tell us about, either with Avon or more generally, how do we build trust in this world where trust is disappearing so rapidly? What do we do about that?
It's so challenging. We've got this uber intense scrutiny, this mistrust, distrust, misinformation, and we've got really complicated issues that we're dealing with. In terms of whether we're looking at peace, whether we're looking at environmental sustainability, there isn't one simple answer. And there's a lot of complexity that lies around even choices, around things like packaging in terms of what's our most sustainable choice, what's the impact on carbon versus plastics in the ocean. So I honestly believe the best thing that we can do as organizations is to be transparent, to know what our core purpose is and to stick with that, and not to be opportunistic, because I think people sniff it a mile off. So I think if you can stay true to who you are, if you are genuinely plotting a course, whether it's around the journey to net zero, whether it's around circularity, whether it's around trying to end gender-based violence in our case, I think plotting that course, staying true to it, staying transparent and communicating is really important. And I think we all need to be really clear that social responsibility is a joined up effort that underpins what a company does. It isn't a communications effort. The communications follows the substance of the work that you're doing over time.
Yeah, fantastic. Michael, we prior to this call had a pre-conversation, and I didn't know the sort of packaging business you were in, and you said we're primarily in metal packaging. Yeah. And I immediately thought, wow, that sounds pretty unsustainable. But I'm wrong. So this is one of these issues, isn't it, about how do we get the message out? And I'll let you get the message out about metal packaging, but how do we get the message out to people who have got so many demands on their time and so many different messages and fake news and reports coming out? How do we get the right messages out to people?
Well, I think part of it is just being very transparent, and if you just think about metal packaging, metal packaging is the most recycled packaging out there. Over 60% of the packaging for metal is recycled. Metal recycles forever. Each time you recycle metal, it only uses 5% of the energy. And in fact, over the 75% of metal that's out there is still in use today and being reused, and reused. So, giving consumers that type of transparency so that they know, but also making it convenient for them to be able to recycle products. Now, I'm not here to say that metal packaging is the only answer. There's an answer for different substrates. There's a role for plastic, a role for paper, but it's looking at what is the right application, the right substrate for the right product and the right occasion, and then making sure that consumers are aware of what they need to do to protect that packaging throughout the life cycle and make sure that it gets reused or gets recycled. And ultimately, the best answer is to use as little packaging as possible. I know I say that I'm in the packaging business, but that's the truth. The truth of the matter is, if we can use less, if we can consume less, if we can waste less food. I mean, part of the reason why packaging is so beneficial is actually it protects products and food for a long period of time. Food in a metal can lasts for years, lasts up to 5 years. That's a huge benefit to reducing food waste. And you think about the challenges that we have right now with climate change. You hear about the record droughts, the biggest drought in 500 years in Europe, the droughts that are taking place in California and all parts of the world. The importance and water scarcity because of that. The ability to produce food is going to become more and more difficult. So making sure that we can preserve that food is going to become more and more important. So again, giving that transparency to consumers and making sure that consumers also hold those brands accountable, hold those companies accountable. For example, look at Russia, right? A big deal invading the Ukraine, totally wrong. What did companies do? They pulled out. A lot of companies pulled out. We pulled out. We were in Russia. So we did it because it's our value system. It's because that's we walk the talk, and we want to be transparent, and we want to do the right thing. So doing the right thing, not always easy, not always making the most economic sense, but the more you can be trustworthy, more transparent, the more that the world is going to start to believe in the right thing.
So, Christian, this is difficult, though, isn't it? Because let's face it, organizations, companies have spent, the last 100 years trying to persuade people to buy more, generally. And now we're trying to persuade people to conserve more and in some cases buy less. How do we do that? How do we have that conversation in a way that it actually builds trust, but also allows us to run profitable businesses that maintain employment and society generally? How do we do it? Is there an easy way we get there, or any thoughts?
There's never an easy way, but there's some golden rules, if I may say that. So, of course, we're talking about transparency, integrity, and trust. But the secret of trust is not to claim trust, but to earn trust.
Yeah.
And I think we have a kind of a generational advantage, because the next generation, I'm not naming them now because everybody's confused about that, but they're very explicit about asking the question about the why. So why are you in business, and how do you run your business? How do you conduct your business? The answer, I mentioned our purpose, but the additional answer we're giving ourselves is we have defined 3 principles on which we run our brand. And brand is basically the face of our business strategy. And those principles are shape, care, deliver. So, of course, we try to deliver on our promises. So we deliver value for what people are paying us for. Caring is about empathy. Very important these days to really engage on an emotional level and not just transactional. But the one which gets me most excited is shaping. So we really define shaping as shaping a better world together. It is part of our business model, but it is also part of looking at the world. And that's why we're partnering with Interbrand, with other brands, with the United Nations, and really trying to find an answer how to make people not only understand, but also act differently on that climate challenge we're all facing.
So a question for all of you, because Patagonia has been in the news recently for the founder of Patagonia essentially giving the company away, a $3 billion company, which was always private, had never had the pressure of the shareholder. Has that set a useful precedent for companies, or is it put companies that are on the stock markets around the world under more pressure? Because I even in the halls of Interbrand, people are talking about Patagonia. What an amazing thing that was! What an act of generosity to put all that money to work for the climate. But what is that saying to comments within your organizations, and how are you dealing with those comments? Any input on that particular issue?
Well, I just think that it ups the stakes for the whole corporate sector, right? When you have a company that has done, a founder that has done such an amazing act for the world, for the planet, it just embodies how important it is for each company to make sure that it's playing its part in doing what's right for the planet to protect the future. Now, some companies are a lot further ahead than others, but what that's going to do is you're sparking that conversation that's taken place. They may not have bought Patagonia products before, but it's hitting the headlines and people are really thinking, is that something, what should we do as a corporation that really takes it to the next level?
So Natalie, I don't know if you have any comments on this, but I kind of wonder, is this going to push companies to move faster and further, as certainly the pressure grows up within your organization and staff saying, come on, we need to show even more social purpose. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, I just think, it's such an amazing example of putting your money where your mouth is, wasn't it? Absolutely incredible. And of course, we're not going to see a whole host of other founders do that overnight. But I think, as we've heard, it really sets the tone. And Actually, we want to hear from our employees, our representatives and our customers about this. We want them to continue voicing their expectations, to ask us to help deliver, whether it's sustainable solutions or more support for women. Because I think there's this, there's a pull from many of our communities, but equally, we touched on it a little bit earlier, we've still, as an organisation, got a really important part to play in helping to educate people to make sustainable choices. I fundamentally believe everybody wants to do the right thing, but they don't always know how to do it. So, I welcome the challenge, and we want to kind of join up with others to get there and deliver.
You mentioned the word education there, Natalie. I want to jump over to Christian to talk about the work that we're doing as an alliance together to try and take on the engagement, enabling, and education issue around climate change. So, Christian, tell us a little bit about that. Tell the audience a little bit about what we're trying to do.
Oh, we have set ourselves just a minor ambition. The next couple of years, we want to reach basically, the world population, 8 billion people, and that's probably the most important thing, simple messages, because everybody has heard about climate change. We are talking about it. There's the Paris Agreement. Everybody might have heard about the 1.5 degrees, but what does it really mean? And I mean, there are amazing institutions out there. And it's not to say that governments, the United Nations, they're not doing enough, but maybe sometimes it's too difficult to digest and to decode and to turn it into personal actions. So ultimately, we want to, talk about that topic in a simple way, in a convincing way, but ultimately we want to achieve behavioral change and stimulate, drive action on an individual level. Every little helps. This is like the kind of line I like most in this. But I can tell you it's anything but trivial, because we're talking about stakeholders, different interests. Ultimately, we need to apply the principles of branding, which is, providing orientation, identification, trust, but conveying messages in a simple way.
Thank you, Christian. Michael, any thoughts about how we speed this up? How do we speed up both the trust building and getting the right messages out there? I mean, I'm sure you're involved in collaborative efforts in the packaging world, because when we all talk as individuals or as companies, it gets very confusing because everyone's got slightly different claims. Is there something going on in your industry that is trying to educate the end user?
Well, I think it starts with conveying the importance of recycling and sustainability, making sure that people are starts with, when they consume their product, when it's finished, what do they do with the container? And making sure that it's providing that clarity to them. Which bin does it go into? Does it go in with everything else, or do you put it into this bin or that bin? Some localities can recycle certain products, others can't. And that creates a lot of confusion out there. And so the important piece is, how do you make sure that each consumer, wherever they're at, has that simple mindset of what they need to do with that product when they're finished with it? What can they do to play a role to make a more sustainable world?
Natalie, we're running out of time here, and I want to come to you finally, because I want to hear a little bit about the amazing work that you're doing with women and empowerment of women. Just one or two of the things that Avon is doing.
Sure, thanks for that. I think it's a common theme. It's about mobilizing people, isn't it? So we have 5 million representatives, 5 million Avon ladies across the world. And one of the most important things that we can do is help to mobilize that group of people, because, as we've heard, individual actions can make an enormous change. So whether it's around making sustainable choices about what they do with their shower gel after they've finished with it, or whether it's about how they can speak out on social issues. So for us, one of the reasons we became involved with Peace One Day is because we believe in the power of mobilizing individuals to speak out. And I think if we do just one thing today, if we can all make sure we are simply speaking out, raising awareness of the need for peace, we can all work together to help build that more sustainable world. So yeah, we at Avon will stay committed. We continue to donate to our network of 30 plus charities around the world, supporting women who are impacted by violence. We continue to make sure we're creating opportunities for women to earn and learn at the core of our model, and we're working with others to do that. But really the most important things that we can all do on a day like today is making sure that we're speaking out and speaking up for peace.
Well, I just want to thank all of our panel members, Natalie, Michael, and Christian. This has been a fascinating discussion. Thank you for joining us, and thanks once again to Peace One Day. Jeremy Gilley is a brilliant example of what one man can do, or one person can do. I feel enormously optimistic when I look at someone like Jeremy, and when I look at the next generation who care deeply about these matters. So I'm sure we all agree with that. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.